Welcome everybody to this general Microsoft 365 development special intro script. I think we need to get rid of the SIG in this call because it's Microsoft 365 development community call. And this is the bi-weekly sync happening on Thursdays, 7 a.m. Pacific time bi-weekly, and kind of a sister call of this one is the SharePoint Framework call as well. Today, we're going to go through what's happening within the open source and community-driven initiatives or open source initiatives. So in the PnP Framework, PnP PowerShell, Yo Teams, and Microsoft Craft Toolkit, every one of these projects are welcoming contributions, and there's luckily already a lot of people involved in them. So thank you for that one as well. Then we're going to do a quick recap on what's happening with the Microsoft Teams samples. We are absolutely welcoming Microsoft Teams samples as well, and we have a lot of them already, but it's a good, cool opportunity to get some visibility for your samples and your work as well. We do a quick crew photo, and then we have 3 different demos. So we'll start with a SharePoint Content Type APIs in Microsoft Craft. So there's new APIs available, relatively new APIs related on the content types in the Microsoft Craft surface, and we're going to go through them. Then we move into Leon Armstrong with a really big demo title, Live London Underground Line Status Bot in Dataverse for Teams, Azure Management API, Azure Functions, Power Virtual Agent. So a lot of technologies in that demo. And then the last one will be Chris Kent. I have no idea what Chris is presenting. It might be something related on war horses. And if you do not know that joke, stick around for the last demo, you will probably get it. So let's see what Chris comes up with today. Now, a quick recap also on the opportunities to participate in the community. We would love you to do a live demo in this community course. It is a great way of actually getting an MVP status or keeping your MVP status. So all of this is obviously absolutely optional. You do not have to volunteer for a demo, but it's a great opportunity for those who would love to do so. You can demo a existing open source solution, some solution which is not open source, completely fine as well, not for product selling purposes, but more like, hey, here's a solution which we built, these are the learnings, these are the technologies which you use. Those kind of demos are super useful to understand what kind of things people are building, because learning from others is by far the easiest way and most interesting way to understand what's possible in Microsoft 365. And then, of course, contributing GitHub and provide in general feedback. We have a lot of assets and available and resources available for you to take advantage. We have 2 different YouTube channels, Microsoft 365 developer videos, and then Microsoft 365 SharePoint community video channel. Slightly weird that we have 2 of them due to historical reasons. Slightly different content in both of them, but check them out. Super cool videos coming up on both of them every single day. We have a lot of open source assets available in multiple different organizations. Many of them are actually samples, and because people are always complaining that going to GitHub and finding the right sample is so hard, we've actually built a lot of sample galleries, which sooner or later within this quarter, we will actually release a new unified Microsoft 365 sample gallery. So you can go to one URL and then you can easily find the Craft, the Microsoft Teams targeted sample, which is using Craft or Power Platform from one location. So that's getting built right now. And if you're wondering that so many URLs, I can't remember any of these, one URL to rule them all, which is AKMS M365 PnP. Cool. A few kind of general updates always. Our team samples are available in AKMS Team Samples gallery. So this is a great gallery. It has multiple filters already, so you can easily find what's relevant for you. If you're looking for a bot or a messaging extension or a webhook or SPFX targeted for Teams, you can target your query based on your preference. So please take advantage of the existing samples rather than always start from scratch. Samples are really great. And this is samples from Microsoft and from community. So both of them are in one location. Some other updates, please do answer our Microsoft 365 developer community survey. This is something which we opened up actually a few days ago. So we're trying to understand how can we help you more. So help us to help you. It's basically the statement in here. We want to make your life easier in the future. So let us know how we can help your life easier. What are the things what are missing? What are the things where we should be investing? Are you looking into doing certificates? Are you looking into more videos? What are the ways you are learning? So let us know so we can help you on that. The other thing which we've been promoting recently within this course is the Microsoft 365 Extensibility Lookbook. And this is really intended to answer the question on Microsoft 365 is so big. There's a lot of options to extend and there's stuff to do. But what are all of those options? So you go to one URL, you can actually see all of the different extensibility options in Teams or in SharePoint or in Office or in Power Platform. And then when you're looking into, for example, additional information around apps in Teams meeting, you click that image, you get videos, you get links to the docs, you get video links to the samples, so making it super easy for you to find the relevant information. And we're looking into feedback on this one as well. Is it working? Are people finding it useful? If something is missing, please do let us know. Now, then we have the Sharing is Caring initiative. And David, I think you're ready to go to do a quick intro on this one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vesa. Well, for any that are new to the community, it's important to know that we are an inclusive and open source community, which means we have lots of tools and resources, some goodies for you to take advantage of, and you can even contribute back and update some of those items. But we understand that there's hurdles that can sometimes prevent you from getting more involved, just knowing how to navigate the landscape to use them, or as far as navigating things like GitHub on how to contribute back. So Sharing is Caring provides live hands-on sessions that walk you through how to do everything from your first-time contribution to updating development and Microsoft documentation, which even though you're not a Microsoft employee, you are empowered to do, which is awesome. Submitting new documentation, setting up your workstation, learning how to present on some of these sessions. If you're nervous but you'd like to, then we will walk you through some tips and tricks. In addition to maturity model and Ask Me Anything opportunities, a whole host of session topics. Our team is growing. We've got more coming soon with Power Platform. They're safe space, inclusive opportunities for you to collaborate. They're not recorded, so you don't have to worry about any of that. We just want to collaborate with you and give you an opportunity to get more involved. So aka.ms/sharingiscaring, and be on the lookout for the next AMA for next month with to the tech community as the topic with Louisa Fries. That's it, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. And then we'll do a quick recap on the open source project. So let me throw the ball to Bert. So on the PnP.NET libraries.
Yes, I just caught the ball. Yeah, okay.
Good.
So .NET libraries, I think, first of all, I want to start with the 95,000 tenants. So it's almost hitting the 100,000 tenants.
In a month, not overall.
In a month. So each month, there's like almost 100,000 tenants using .NET libraries or PnP.NET libraries. And actually, we did some calculation that boils down to more than 16,000 requests each second of the month March. Just saying, like, imagine the infrastructure you need just to handle 16,000 requests each second continuously for the whole month of March. So anyhow, just saying that this is being used and usage keeps on growing massively. Now, what did we do over the last month? A little bit less than previous period because there was Easter and some people took Easter holiday. But on the PnP Framework side, we are preparing for 1.5. Some highlights there is the Patrick Helgen created an SP Web Request Executor, which allows you to replace the way how CSOM makes an HTTP request. So CSOM today uses HTTP Web Request class in .NET, which is quite old and has some limitations. Now with this web request executor, you can just plug in HTTP client, which gives you more scalable scenarios in clouds when you're using it in a cloud, because there is less connections being created, so you have less port exhaustion problems and so on. So it's a better scenario. It's not a default yet, but we're testing that and might even become a default solution going forward. Marston created some additional test mocking options. And there is bug fixes from Christian and Gautam. On the PnP Core SDK side, so the new library, we had some page API updates from Yannick when working with large page libraries. So he had the case where there's like a page library having more than 5,000 pages. So we had some issues and we fixed those. Viva topic pages support is coming. Now we have like limited support to kind of read an existing topic page and update it and save it back. We'll add support to also create new Viva topic pages programmatically. And some other minor fixes have been done, but more work is coming now that Easter holidays is over.
Cool. Let's jump then to the next project, and that was the PowerShell indeed. And Irvin is out today, so Bert.
Yeah, I'll do it real quick. Again, PowerShell also hit like an all-time record, 25,000 tenants. Again, massive growth over there. And we are at 1.5 version today. I think the main new thing in that release was the published PnP company app. So Viva desktop connections application. So It's similar to the script that Microsoft shipped, but now you have like one commandlet to create the same Teams package that you can then upload to the Teams tenant. And there is support for syntax, being able to export syntax models and deploy them, and more smaller bug fixes that happened over the last weeks.
Just I have to say that because there's an active discussion related on syntax in general. We can't go to our details, but there's more and more functionalities and stuff happening with that one as well from a sample and template and all of that perspective. So more stuff coming, really cool stuff as a teaser, just to mention. So, yes, but thank you, Bert, on that one. Thank you on that one. And let's jump then to Victor Villain and what's happening in your teams. You had something related on Viva Connections here as well.
Absolutely. So the good thing with these bi-weekly meetings is that I must carve out some time to do some updates. So I did that this morning. Merged some couple of pull requests, one from Paolo, one from Paul, or a couple from Paul, smaller minor enhancements, and we published a new 3.1.0 preview. And there's also now a new option when you create a tab. You have the option of, previously had the option of a configurable tab and a static tab, and now you have a Viva Connections tab. So it is essentially a static tab that is just pre-configured with all the valid domains and everything that needs to be in the manifest. So if you have a Yo Teams application with the bot, for instance, today, you can just run Yo Teams over it again, assuming you're using version 3, and then add the Viva Connections tab to it. So that's what we've done. We also published the build tools 1.1.0 this morning as well. It's been out in preview for quite some time, which has support for multiple manifests. And yeah, as you can see, March was the greatest month ever for Yo Team. So a lot of good stuff. I have more PRs to walk through, and hopefully we have some great updates in 2 weeks again.
Thank you, Victor. There's a lot of excitement on the Yo Teams as well. It is absolutely a great tool for creating stuff for the Microsoft Teams. So check it out if you are not familiar with that. But thank you on that one, Victor. And then let's move to the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. I saw that we have Beth on the call as well. Just to do a quick recap in here. Beth,
hi.
Take it away.
Thank you. So kind of similar to last week, we fixed some bugs on the toolkit. And for those of you who doesn't know what Microsoft Graph Toolkit is, it's a web component library that's fully functional, powered by Microsoft Graph, that could help you build Microsoft Graph powered apps. We also have a list of authentication providers to help you build apps on different platforms. So one of the asks that we have from the team this week is please try out the Microsoft/MGT SharePoint package. This solves a lot of the bugs that people using SharePoint and building apps with Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And then we also have 2 new things coming up. One is the MSL2 provider. The other one is the MGT file and file list components. So feel free to try out the beta version. I have the purple npm install on there. So if you wanted to check out our next branch for MSL2 provider and next file, and give us feedback on, if there's any more features or attributes or properties you would like to see on these things, let us know. As far as how you can help, just try out these things and give us feedback on the repo. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. I just need to, again, repeat what I always say, but thank you for waking up this early. It is 7 a.m. when this call starts in Pacific. So Beth is really showing commitment on showing up on this call. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Cool. And then Bob, updates on the team samples. Not that many this time.
I know it's kind of disappointing, but every now and then I have to make the slide that says we don't have any new samples. So, lots of exciting stuff going on in Teams development. So if you've built something cool, consider sharing it with the community. We would really love to have it. Glad to help. So just drop a pull request in the Teams Dev Samples repo, PnP/Teams Dev Samples, or reach out to me, jump into a sharing is caring session if you've not done this before. We're all glad to help and would love to see some more samples in this space. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. There is a lot of samples already available there, but we're really trying to create this kind of a centralized location where Microsoft and community samples are being presented from one location, just making it easier for everybody to find.
Yeah, I think so. People don't care where the sample came from. They want to get something done and they're looking for a certain scenario. So it's all good.
Yeah, and you can filter if, by the way, if you're wondering that, hey, can I filter on the samplers coming from Microsoft? Yes, you can. There are filtering mechanisms on that as well.
Absolutely.
Now, thank you, Bob, on that. Let's jump for a quick group photo. Do we get 50 today? Let's see. I will flip in here. I will get the. Do we get? Let's see. I will flip this in to be. Let's be that one today. So we haven't used that for a while. So let's see how many people we're getting on the screen.
These chairs are more comfortable, I think.
Yeah. Yes. I will start the recording, and that's going to freeze for a second, and then we can see everybody. I think we're hitting the max 50. Let's do some waving. Thank you, everybody, for being part of the community. This is super, super cool. Hopefully, at some day we'll have 250 support for this view as well. So thank you, everybody. Awesome. We're going to grab a screenshot out of that as well and publish that in the social media. So thank you for that. And I'm going to steal that away from here, and then we're going to go to the demo section. So we're going to start with Microsoft Graph APIs for SharePoint content types. It's really cool to see more and more SharePoint APIs, classic SharePoint APIs being available in the Microsoft Graph like it should be. So we're catching up. Yeah. But we can see the screen, so take it away.
Hi everyone. So today I'll be going through some of the APIs, content type APIs that we have introduced to Microsoft Graph. So you can refer to this the content type resource page in the Graph beta documentation for the list of all the APIs that we have added recently. Just a quick note on the permissions before we start with the demo. So for all the get APIs, sites.read.all permission is required. And for patch, post, and delete APIs, sites.manage.all permission is required. And for APIs that are specific to publishing content type, for that, sites.full control permission is required. So I'll just start with the demo. So basically, the first API is basically create a content type at a site level. So for this example, I'm using a document set content type because it is a bit more tricky to use. So for this, basically I'm using the 3 of the required properties. First one is the document set name. The second property is base, which is basically the content type from which this content type is derived from. And the third property is group, which is basically the group to which this content type will be added in the if you go to the settings page. So I'll just fire this API. Yeah. So in the response, you can see all the metadata related to content type in the response. And it also has some of the document set specific metadata like the allowed content types, and if there are any shared columns or any default contents, those will also show up in the response. So I'll then proceed to the next API. So basically the second API is to add the content type that we created to the documents library in this site. So this request takes in the content type URL, the graph URL to the content type in the request body. And in the response, you will get the content type resource that has been added to the list. So if we quickly jump to the document library settings, you should be able to see, so you can see the contract doc set has been added to the list. And yeah, so in the next API, basically, I'll be adding a column to the content type that we have created. In this API parameter, the request in the request body, you will need to provide the source column parameter, and its value will be the API URL to the column resource that you are trying to add to the content type. So in this case, it would be of something like site column. So in the response, you will get all the metadata related to the column that has been added to that content type. And coming to the next API is basically to this will copy the an existing file in any of the lists in that site to the content type resource folder. So that file then can be used to used as a template, or in case of document set, it can be used as a default content for that document set. So basically, I already have a item that is stored in one of the lists. So in the request body, I'll just need to provide the list ID and the list item ID of that particular item. And this is the optional parameter. The destination file name is an optional parameter, which will basically give a new name to the file at the destination if it is present. So if this request is successful, it will return a 204 no content response, and otherwise it will return any failure code. Then coming to the patch API, I'll be updating the document set content type that we have created. So basically, I'm adding some shared columns and allowed and content types that can be allowed to the content type. So once I make this request, it will return the allowed content types. Basically, you can see the content type that I've added in the document set here. And if you go to the UI in the site content types page, you can see the in the document set settings, these two content types have been added as allowed content types in the document set, and this column has been added as a shared column in the document set. Yes. Then coming to the next API, this is a publish API which will require a full control permission, and when I make this request, it will basically just change the state of that content type to publish. We can go back to the content types page, and if you go to the manage publishing, you will see that it is now published. And once the sync job runs, it will be synced to all the sites which can use this content type. Then coming to the next API, so this API is specific to the tenants that have SharePoint syntax license. So this will enforce the content type to the sites that are associated with the hub site. So what we mean by enforcement is that it will basically add that content type to all the sites that are associated with this hub site that we are providing in the request body. And also, if by default, so the second parameter specifies if this is true, then it will also add the content type to the existing lists in those sites. And if this is false, then the content type will be added by default to only the new list that the user will create. So once I fire this request, it will return a 204 no content response if the request is successful. And the change will actually happen. There is a background job that will run and do the enforcement. So you may see some delay, like it runs at every 5 minutes. So you may see some delay to when this content type is getting enforced to those sites. So that's it from my demo side. Are there any questions on any of the APIs or any content type?
Yeah, Vesa here. I just have to say that it's great to see there's a lot of super powerful thinking here. Copy the default content location, super powerful, and great to see that to be supported, because then that means that we can automate the template for the content types as well. So it's not just about creating content types, but also getting the templates here. And I love to propagate to existing lists. So that has been taken into a consideration, because that's quite typical enterprise use case that you need to modify existing sites, not just the new sites and new operations which are getting created. So really cool stuff. There was a question, I don't know if we can answer that there was a question related on metadata on the document sets. So there was one of the demos which showed how was around the document sets and what is the metadata, what can be set for a document set.
Sorry, so for just the document sets, all the metadata that is available currently in the document set settings page can be set through the API.
Okay.
So yeah.
All of the metadata which is available in the document set UX pages can be set through the API, which is really good. So thank you for confirming that. Really, really great stuff. Thank you for that. And next, let's move into the following demo. We are right on the schedule, which is really good. We have some flexibility here, which is really good as well. So Leon, you are next on the demo list.
Yep. Welcome. Let me just share my screen, and thanks, Vesa. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to my presentation today on creating a live London Underground line status bot in Dataverse for Teams using Power Virtual Agents, Power Automate, Azure Management API, and Azure Functions. Apologies for the long title. I just, was struggling to get the technologies in. A little about me. My name is Leon Armston, and I'm a Microsoft 365 Solutions Consultant at Intelligy in London, in the United Kingdom. You can find details below on how you can connect with me. You can check out my blog, leonarmston.com, or find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or GitHub. I will now outline the functionality that I want to showcase on this demo. So in my opinion, one of the most exciting new features of Dataverse for Teams is the ability to leverage Microsoft Azure API management. This allows citizen developers to use Azure Management API-backed custom connectors in Power Apps or Power Automate in a Dataverse for Teams environment. So this means you can connect to, using the Azure API, Management API, you can connect to Azure resources, i.e. Azure Functions to run PowerShell or code. But the good thing is that all of this is available using your current seeded Teams licensing. So this is a great opportunity to use this exciting new technology with your customers or organization today. So I wanted to use Power Virtual Agents in Dataverse for Teams to build a live interactive bot. As it's Dataverse for Teams, the bot can only be used from the Teams application or Teams web client, so there are some restrictions. But with your bot, you can interact with any live API, i.e. transportation, sports results, weather, recipes, or even there's Chuck Norris API for quotations. So you may recall a previous demo I did on the London Underground where I created a live interactive London Underground line status board that used Power Automate and SharePoint view formatting. So over the Christmas period, much to the annoyance of my wife, I decided to spend time extending my previous London Underground theme and created a proof of concept London Underground line status bot. I will now use this diagram to explain the solution. So watch my mouse. It consists of a Power Virtual Agents bot running in a Dataverse for Teams environment for a specific Microsoft team. We can see the Dataverse for Teams environment perimeter highlighted in purple. So the user sends a message, the trigger phrase of, are there any delays? Power Virtual Agents then recognizes the trigger word, selects the correct topic, which then triggers a flow in Power Automate, which then connects to a custom connector, and that's where it gets exciting. The custom connector then goes out to my Azure tenant and connects to the Azure Management API instance, which then connects to an Azure function. The Azure function then runs some PowerShell, which via a web request connects to the London Underground line status API to provide the line status. And then finally, that's all returned back along the tree, all the way back to the Power Virtual Agent, and it returns the line status. I'll go into this in more detail, but that's at a high level. I will now demo my solution to you. So the London Underground provides a an API and also a web page with the line status. So we're using this information that is then published to an API. So applications can call into this API and get the latest line status. So I'll now show you my bots, which you could build. So I'll type the trigger phrase of line status, but there's many other trigger phrases that it responds to. So it's glad to report, and it asks me which line I'm interested in. So I'll type central. So that's the central line, and then it connects to the TFL API via Power Automate via Azure, and says that there's no delays on the central line. I'll type the trigger phrase again. But this time I'll type some random characters, and obviously there's not a line that's called after those characters. So I then have some smarts where it's then gives me a list of all the line names. So I'll select the Waterloo and City line, and it will return that there's no service until further notice. So now let me show you how this is put together. So in your Teams client, under Dataverse for Teams, you can access Power Virtual Agents. So I'm in there now, and I go to chatbots, and I can, when it loads, I can see my Power Virtual Agents bots that I've previously made in Dataverse for Teams. So I select the London Underground Dataverse for Teams environment, and I can see my bot here called Tubi. I select Tubi, and then this will load my chatbots. I'm interested in the topics, so these are the rules of the responses to the questions asked to the bot. So I'll go to line status, which I configured, and we can see all the trigger phrases for this bot. So when these trigger phrases are spoken, this topic is initiated. So I'll go to the authoring canvas now, and this is the topic in logical order with all the rules. So we can see the trigger phrases that we just discussed, and then we can see that there's a message and it asks a question. We'll test the bot here by typing the trigger phrase again. And we can see that, Power Virtual Agents indicates in green where you are in the action tree. So we can see that we're up to question, which line are you interested in? And that corresponds to down here where it says, which line are you interested in? And we can type the central line, and then we'll go further down the tree and to the response. But I just want to go back and show you that it goes to Power Automate, and that's where it connects to a custom connector and goes and gets the live API results. We've also got the smarts here for if the line name is not found, then we have the option to select from a button all of the 15 London Underground lines. So I'm going to go to the flow in Power Automate and show you how that's done and how it connects with a custom connector. So if I edit the flow, I'm not going to go into great detail because this is quite complex, this Power Automate flow, but the first trigger initiation is it's asking for the line name. So the topic provides the line name that we typed in. Then if we go to here, this is a custom connector that I built. So this connects to Azure Management API and queries the London Underground line status API. So first of all, it's secured with a subscription key that only I know, so it can't be remotely triggered anonymously. And then it requests the line name from the first action. Then that queries the API, and if there's a matching line name, we formulate the response if there's any reported delays or if there's delays expected. But if we formulate that all in Markdown language, so we make things bold, we make things headers, so it's nicely formatted for the users, and then we return all that back to the user in the topic. So I'm now going to go to Azure to show all the components for this. So you will need an Azure subscription to do this. But the custom connector, it connects directly to the Azure Management API service that I've got. So that's a web layer that you can deploy in your Azure environment and then publish your own APIs to it. So you could publish an API direct from a logic app, an app service, or a function app. In my case, I'm going to, I've already deployed a function app. So that's called line status. So this is a web API, and we can go into the front end and see that it's a post request and that it wants to query parameters, the subscription key and line name. So you may remember in the custom connector in Power Automate, we had two text boxes asking first for the subscription key and secondly for the line name. So that's where they come from. And then if we go to the back end, so we can see the back end of the API over this right-hand side is it's linked to an Azure function app. And that function app is called London Tubes. So if we go to London Tubes, in the function app, within functions, click on our function. With this will now load up the PowerShell that powers this script. So I'll just go through this. We have the first part is where it's initiated by the line name. So if a line name is supplied to it, that then populates this line name variable over here. And that's coming from the request at the beginning. Now that then feeds into the line name, the if statement. So that's this box here. And we have the special part here is we invoke web request to target the TfL Transport for London Tube Status API. So instead of Power Automate, you would use a HTTP connector, which would be a premium connector. We're using PowerShell invoke web request and just sending over the web request there. We convert that to a object in PowerShell. So what happens is all of the line statuses are returned. So we need to filter it by the line name. So that's what's happening here. And then finally, we convert it back to JSON format, ready for Power Automate to use. The next part of the if statement we don't really use, but that returns all lines without filtering. So if you wanted to do something in your Power Automate with all lines, that's what you would use. And then finally, the last part is where we return the response back to the function and back to the custom connector and back to Power Automate. So I'll now just show you how easy it is to, after you've created your API, to publish it to Power Apps or Power Automate as a custom connector. So we can click on Power Apps or Power Automate, and then it will publish it to your instance. So let me just return back to my demo and do a quick recap. So to recap, this solution uses Power Virtual Agents in Microsoft Teams, in Dataverse for Teams. to provide a London Underground line status bot. A user asks a question to the bot about a particular line, and then the line status topic is triggered, which then triggers a flow in Power Automate. A custom connector is then used in the flow, which connects to an Azure Management API instance, which triggers an Azure function. The Azure function then runs a PowerShell invoke web request command to connect to the London Underground line status API. Finally, this information is returned to the user by a bot. And that's all. So thank you for your time today and for watching my presentation. Below is a link to my blog and a direct link to the blog post where you can find a full guide for implementing this solution. There is also a QR code so you can scan this to take you direct. Feel free to connect with me using the details below and let me know if you have any comments or questions regarding the solution. I hope for you, like me, it sparks ideas regarding the art of the possible with all that technologies. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon. Really, really great stuff. And it's a absolutely brilliant set of technology being demoed on this setup. And it's great to see actually how your tube line, status line thing is evolving. It's been a dynamic SPFX web port. It's now a bot. It's evolving all the time across the different technologies in Microsoft 365. So really, really cool stuff. And April is reaching out certainly for getting you to demo this in a Power Platform community calls as well. So this is really, really, really great stuff. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
And thanks, Leon. And then we'll jump to the Chris Kent's demo.
Woo! All right. Can you guys hear me?
Audio is good. Audio is good.
All right.
And we can even see you. That's really good. Well, we don't see you. We can see your screen. I think
and
that's
my
the
fake
intention.
photoshopped image. Can you see that? That's important.
Yes.
All right, great. All right, everybody. Hello. I'm Chris. Let's talk about some cool stuff here. So I've shown something like this before, but I think it's important to kind of take a look at list formatting. So there's lots of different options in list formatting. We started off with just being able to do columns, and now we can go kind of crazy with all sorts of stuff, which is awesome, but it can be a little confusing if you're just starting out. So let's take a look at it, and then we're going to dive into one specific section. So we looked at this before, right? You've got this idea of a surface. So where your list is going to render, whether it's the list view, Microsoft list, web part, mobile app, that kind of thing. There's going to be standard UI elements. There's going to be like the headers, the unformatted groups, an aggregates row, all those kind of things. That's just standard UI and all this extra stuff that's going to come along. Then you're going to have your data, right? That's just where your fields are going to render and however they normally look. And then we can do some actual formatting here, and that's those column formats. We can apply those at the field or site column level, right, to one or more of our columns here. And those will just have a nice display. We can even do what's called a view format row class, which is just a simple, we can put an expression and say for every row that matches this expression, slap this class on there. And that, again, will play nicely with our column formats, all nice in stacks. Or we can go a little crazier. We can use what's called a row formatter, where we can control the entire render of the surface row by row, right? So we control this whole render, and then it gets applied on each row as it goes. With our view formats, which are applied at the view level, so you can have multiple per list as you switch between views. Even within the view, you can switch to what's called the gallery view, and we can control that separately through a tile props format, where we can apply this, and these can live simultaneously together. All right, and then we have this idea that we can go even a little further, and we can get rid of the column header. We can substitute our own, right? We can't really customize the column headers. This is just kind of hacking it in there. But there's also this new stuff we saw demoed by Naveed a couple of weeks ago, which is where if you've got groups, right? So you've got your grouping, you've decided to group by a column, and then you've got some aggregates. So you've got a footer per group that shows the aggregates for that individual group, but you've also got a footer for the entire list, which shows the aggregates, right? Counts, averages, sums, all that kind of thing across the entire list. So those are some things, and now we've got the ability to customize those. We can use what's called group props to kind of customize our header and footer of the individual groups. And then we've got this other guy called the footer formatter, which allows us to touch that kind of aggregate row. And both the footer and the aggregates at the bottom and the footer and the individual groups can be hidden. All right, and then of course we've got our form, where, by default, we've got a kind of a standard UI, but we can customize that further. Our column formats are going to show up there. They're going to be translated over, but then we also have control over both the header up at the top here, and we control the footer down here. And while that's not really formatting, we can control the body layout in terms of sections, right? So we've got a detail section and an unnamed section up here, and we've got attachments down here with little lines. So there's quite a bit we can do. So all of that to say, we've got samples and everything else and guidance and multiple videos on each of these areas. And a couple weeks ago, we take a look specifically at group props and kind of that footer formatter. What I want to do, so that was done by Microsoft, and there was a great presentation. Check that out on YouTube, right? That kind of introduced the concepts and kind of the vanilla view. What I want to do is I want to dive a little bit deeper into it, kind of look through our options and kind of play and experiment a little with you. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Let's see, we go back to the, all right, we go to our classic Warhorses site, we get Vesa out of, get out of here. All right, so we take our look over here. Now we've got this FAQs list, right? Pretty common scenario. And in fact, we've actually shown this off before with a format. So we applied like a format like this, right? Which is cool. And this format is a sample that is available as part of our GitHub repo. And you can check that out. But what if we wanted to do something a little more classic? Like one of the things people have always been frustrated with this kind of thing is I want to collapse these, right? For this case, I've got pretty small answers here. But what if I've got really long ones and I want to collapse that, or I want to group these by various things? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Imagine that. So let's take a look at the easiest way to accomplish that. So I've got this collapse simple. I've got the title field, which I've just renamed to question, and I've got a multi-text field called answer. And what I want to do is I want to apply some grouping and some formatting to that. Now, one of the things that's going to be frustrating is there's not a group by option for the title field. So we've got to go to our list settings and go old school view settings. So if we scroll all the way down, we find our collapse simple view. Some of you are having PTSD just seeing this. So sorry, so sorry. But if we come down to group by, now we can select our title field, which in this case has been renamed to question. So I'm going to select that. All that just to get the grouping. So now I've got it grouped, and that's cool. So now I've got this kind of FAQ look, right? So I've got a question, expand it. Hey, there's the answer. It's a little awkward, right? So I mean, we could do a few things like we could take this and we could say, hide this column, right? It still works because it's part of the grouping. So now it's not as awkward. The question isn't repeated inside there, but it's still a little weird that it says question, colon, can I have a hug? And it's always going to say 1. Right, because we always have a one-to-one answer. What if we want to customize that a little further? Well, it wouldn't be a demo if it wasn't possible. So we're going to format this current view. In this case, we're going to go to advanced mode. And for this demo, I'm just going to delete the schema just to get it out of the way. All right, in this case, this is a view format. So I can apply all the things I would normally apply. But in this case, I'm going to do group props. When I say group props, now I've got access to a variety of things. I can set the header, which is all we're showing here. We don't have any aggregates or anything like that. So I'm going to say header formatter. I always write header format. It's header formatter. Right, you're going to hit that. And then this is just same rules as column formatting here. So I'm going to say helm type. All right, in this case, we're going to say a div. And then we're just going to say text content. All right, and just for our purpose, we're going to say wowee. All right, and look at that. Now we are controlling that. You notice we can't control, the caret that goes up or down here. We don't have any access to that, but everything from the caret over, we can control that experience. Here we're just putting text. What if we want to put that value like we had before? Well, we have a magic string called @group, which has 3 different properties on it. All right, we have the column display name. All right, and notice that N is capital, unlike in the body sections. And if we preview that, well, we have to type it correctly, apparently. You can see my, I don't know, we'll move on from that. I typed wrong here. Okay, @group, and we'll say value or field data. We'll come back to the column display name in a second. Preview that. There we go. So group.field data is really the one we're after in this case. So group.field data is going to be just whatever that field is, right? So if it's a person field, you'll have access to the subproperties the same way you would anywhere else. You can say .title, .email. If this is, say, a currency column, or it's a yes, no, and you don't want it to say true or false. When it's yes, no, you could say display value. In this case, with text, it's going to be the exact same. So it doesn't change anything there. But so in other words, field data, consider that a placeholder for whatever your value is. So you can do a lot with that. Right. What if I want some of those other things, right? I want to say count. I want to know the number of items displayed there, right? That's that one. So I can do all sorts of things with that, right? If I want to highlight colors or go crazy with it, I can. But again, in this case, I just want the field data. I'm just trying to simplify things so it doesn't say question with that number. So that looks cool, right? Can we go a little further and make this a little better? Well, of course we can, right? So we're going to come up here and we're going to add hide column header. All right, and we're going to add that. I'm just going to say true on that because we don't need this up here, right? So let's preview that. Bam, that's now gone. Now we've got this selection going on here. We don't need that either. So let's put hide selection. I'm just going to say true on that and put a comma. Preview that sucker. And what did I type wrong? I'm having trouble with my typing. Okay, well, either way. Whatever the someone got in the text, I don't remember what the hide selection or hide selector or whatever it is. There's a value for that. I will tell you there is a you know what it is? It's showing here. There's a bug, and that's what it is showing. So you'll notice when I hide the selection, which is correct, you see I have no selection. There is a bug right now. It's submitted on the issues list. We'll see where it goes. Whereas as soon as you expand, you now have a selector. So that's a little weird. But it's still workable here, right? So this is pretty good. I'm just going to save this, right? And that's cool. Now I've got a very, very different view. It does not look like a standard list view. And I can even come over to like a page, right? If I edit this page and I just grab a web part, you know, grab that list web part, you know, and here I'm going to put it to the FAQs list. All right, let's edit this thing so I can pick my view, and the view is collapse simple. I hit apply. Right, and there we go, and I can, you know, take away the command bar. You know, if I don't want this display, fun fact, if I just put a space there, it's no longer going to display. All right, so now we hit that, and I'm going to hit publish. I can't really get rid of the see all, but from there, you can imagine, you know, especially if I add other things to this, right? This is we've just made basically a little web part. A little application where you can display this stuff. And if you want to put fancier styles on there, right, you want to make this a big, cool looking bar, right, with icons and everything else, all of that's available to you. And all of that now can be done with formatting, and you get really that interactive piece, this collapse and expand, which we didn't have before. If you combine that with something like the hover cards, you really start getting into a little miniature application here. All right, so that's really cool. Let's go a little further, shall we? Yeah, we got 5 minutes. Why not? So if we take a look, I've got a couple of extra columns on here. So this is just a standard non-grouped view of the same FAQs list, right? I've got a ratings column and a really important. This one just has a simple column format just to show that that's going to be respected with our grouping. All right, so in this case, I'm going to group by really important, right? So now I got the no and I got the yes. And in this case, I want to add some of those total columns. So I'm going to add a total of, let's see, on the rating, we'll do an average. Right, and we'll just put a count here just so we can see one. All right, so not on that, totals, and we'll just go count. All right, so now what you'll notice here is every group, right, has its own footer, right, which shows the average and the count for that group. This count is not very accurate because it's, yeah, it's just counting the yeses, right? But then we've got here the same thing, but we have an aggregate footer on the very bottom. So that's cool, right? But what about if we want to change some of that around? So let's format this view. Now in this case, let's target this list forward footer at the bottom right now, which only shows up with our aggregate row. I'm going to get rid of all that again. This one is going to be footer formatter, and everything go in column formatting, go here, right? So I'm going to say Elm type is div, and I'm going to say text content is, I don't know, donkey. That's some kind of lesser horse. Sounds right. All right, so preview that. Now, here's what's interesting. You notice that it drew it in both spots, right? So the footer formatter, because it's called like row formatter and all the other ones, you might expect I can now control this entire footer row, and that's not true. It's more of a template that applies, and it will be drawn in the same spot as your original column. So even if you're coming in here and you're doing something like row formatter, which we're just going to put some junk here just to show that that works. All right, we'll just put a Elm type of div as well. And then we're just going to text content just to show that we're overriding the whole thing is wow. That sounds great. Okay, so the idea here is even though I'm controlling the entire render of the row, where my footer formats go right here is still going to be in line with those original columns, even if I hide these columns. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's a bit of a limitation in some ways. In other ways, it's really nice not to have to draw those where they go. All right, so let's get rid of that, though, because that's distracting. Get rid of that guy. So that's how we can have a footer format. That's beautiful. We can also do something like maybe we just, like this is the aggregate value for across everything is not important to us. All right, so we want to say hide footer. And we're going to set that to true. All right, I'm going to preview that. And now we only have the footer for the group. All right, so that's neat. Now, what if I want to apply a cool format to do some other stuff with it? Well, good news, we can. I'm going to hurry it up here because we're running out of time. And so if I grab a footer formatter I've already got over here on my magic hidden screen, all right, I'm just going to grab this and we'll just paste it in here. So I got a footer formatter and we preview that. Now, the only thing it's really doing is it's taking a look at what this called column aggregate. It's a magic string as well that can only be used inside the groupings, so the footers. So we've got @column aggregate. You can get the type. So in this case, I've got an icon based on the type. Right, if it's count, I'm going to show this, Oglethorpe, this hashtag. Or if it's any other type, I'm just showing a calculator. But if I want to go a little crazier, we can do that. Right, and I've also got the type shown up as a tooltip. And meanwhile, I can get the type here, but I've also got the value. So I can get the value. And of course, if I really want that column display name, I can get that as well. Now you'll notice that this footer was applied, but this footer still looks like the standard. Well, that's okay. All we've got to do is get our group props. So I'm going to copy this whole thing. I'm going to paste it again, and we'll take a look. Boom. So you'll see I've still got that same thing we just did with the footer formatter down here. But up here, I've just taken group props and pasted the exact same footer formatter here, except that I changed the font size. So preview that, and now you have it. So we can specify that footer format separate from the main footer format. So you can do quite a bit with that, which is cool. It's pretty fancy, right? All right, one last, we're out of time. So we'll have to skip the next part. There is some complications if you're doing a double nesting of groups. And when you're doing something along those lines, you're going to want to take a look at that column display name and maybe set your display to none on multiple elements. So there is a sample for that, but I'm going to skip it in the interest of time. So I can just go to the wrap up so Vesa doesn't cry. Don't cry, Vesa. All right. So last little thing here. So header formatter, footer formatter, and then hide footer. That's all within that group props. And then you've got the group here where you can get these various values. One thing to note is it is the display name when you pull that out. It is not the internal name. You don't have any access to that right now. That is something I've requested. Hopefully we get that at some point. And then, of course, the list footer itself, again, you've got another footer formatter. So now we've got 3 different spots to put possible footer formatters, but they are a little different in each spot. So the form, the aggregate bar, and within the group. And, of course, you can hide that footer, and then you can get all the column aggregate information here. Very exciting stuff. And then, of course, there is full documentation on this in the view formatting. So check that out. You'll notice there is a section in there called aggregates where they suggest using a for each. Honestly, I can't figure it out. So if anyone else wants to figure that out and let me know how that one works, that'd be great. But we've got a ton of samples on this, both about view formatting and column formatting, but also illustrating how to do the groups from the very simple we looked at to some pretty elaborate things where you're doing nested groups and so on. So that's it. That's all I got.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. I will quickly close up for today. So thank you. Great demos today related on the Graph API changes, and then Leon Armstrong and Chris on the last section. Quick reminder, next Tuesday, we have the Microsoft Teams monthly community call. So this is the typical one where we have been covering engineering-driven things. This time, there's no engineering topics for the next Tuesday, but there's 3 cool MVP-driven demos related on Teams development. So just a teaser for next Tuesday's Microsoft Teams monthly community call. This call will be recorded, or recording will be available, was recorded. Recording will be available in the YouTube channel in 24 hours. We'll push it out in social media as well. In general, there's a lot of community calls available. Please select those which are suitable for you, and then check the recordings from the rest if you're interested in following up on what's happening. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for the demo presenters, and that's it for today. So thank you. Let's stay in touch. Bye-bye.